Imagine waking up in a world where half the people you know are gone within years, where streets are silent, marketplaces are empty, and every neighbor could be your last. The year is 1347. Europe is thriving with trade. Cities growing, and yet from nowhere, an invisible force begins to strike an enemy so deadly it doesn't care for kings, armies, or churches. This is the story of the Bubonic Plague, the Black Death, a disaster that didn't just kill. It reshaped economics, power, and the very psychology of survival in today. Finance TED official uncovers the lessons the modern world still ignores. The plague arrived silently via ships docking in Sicily, rats carrying fleas infected with Yersinia pestis. Sailors were dead or dying before help could reach them. Towns tried to close gates, thinking distance would save them, but the disease had already leaped onto the docks, and within weeks, entire communities were engulfed. Doctors wore beaked masks filled with herbs, thinking miasma caused death, but nothing worked. Panic spread faster than infection. Fear replaced governance. Families abandoned each other. Mass graves became the norm. Trust, once the backbone of society, shattered overnight. Here comes the first major reveal. The Black Death didn't only kill, it transformed the labor economy. With half the population gone, surviving workers held unprecedented value. Peasants and craftsmen could demand wages never seen before. Aristocrats and landowners tried to freeze the old feudal system, but scarcity had shifted power. Revolts erupted like the Peasants' Revolt of 1381 in England, showing that society could no longer function as it had. Freedom, previously unimaginable for the common person, suddenly became attainable, and this accidental redistribution of power laid the foundations for the modern middle class. Scarcity forced innovation. Banks' credit and trade mechanisms evolved rapidly. Cities like Florence and Venice became hubs for commerce because labor shortages meant merchants and artisans gained leverage. Ordinary people transformed tragedy into opportunity. Skilled blacksmiths, merchants, and builders suddenly had influence over elites. Survivors gained wealth, status, and social mobility. The first major economic reset in history was underway, and it happened silently in the shadows of death and despair. The second reveal. The Black Death accelerated social and cultural evolution. Women gained property rights as men perished. Art and science blossomed as mortality awareness shifted priorities. People invested in knowledge, culture, and luxury goods, leading to the Renaissance. Death paradoxically fueled creativity, innovation, and the acceleration of human progress. The plague reshaped human psychology. Mortality awareness became a catalyst for valuing life, wealth, and opportunity differently than before. Economically, the plague forced redistribution. Farms went fallow, forcing better agricultural techniques. Labor shortages pushed wages up and drove mechanization and efficiency. Trade routes expanded, markets stabilized, and merchant banks flourished. Scarcity changed value, risk changed behavior. Mortality changed priorities. The third reveal, the Black Death, was a financial reset, precursor to capitalism, where human ingenuity outpaced rigid hierarchies, and power flowed toward those who adapted fastest. Now consider the human stories. A blacksmith in Florence loses family and home but becomes a city's most valuable artisan. Merchants seek him, offering wealth and influence. Women inherit businesses, manage estates, and expand societal roles. Communities reorganize. Trade flourishes. Society rebuilds itself, stronger, more adaptive, and wealth begins to flow differently. This pattern repeats across Europe. Death, while destructive, seeds opportunity and innovation. The psychological impact was profound. Artists began realism, capturing real people and emotions. Scholars questioned dogma. Cities valued adaptability and creativity over birthright. The Black Death was not just biological, it was a financial, social, and psychological earthquake. It exposed vulnerabilities and revealed opportunities. Crises are both destroyers and creators. Even governments adapted. Taxes, bonds, and financial instruments emerged as rulers scrambled to maintain control. Scarcity forced structural innovation. The fourth reveal: crises reset human systems. The lessons of the Black Death echo today in pandemics, recessions, inflation, and labor shortages. The systems that appear stable can collapse overnight. Human adaptability determines survival and prosperity. Let's zoom in further. A widow inherits her husband's estate, runs his trade, and becomes wealthier than most surviving men. A young merchant survives the plague, buys property at fire sale prices, and builds an empire. Ordinary survivors exploit scarcity, skill, and opportunity to gain wealth previously impossible. The plague rewired social, economic, and gender hierarchies, accelerating modernity by centuries. Mortality, scarcity, and survival instinct transformed human systems fundamentally. Europe recovered in waves, each bringing innovation. Agriculture mechanized, cities expanded, banking and commerce became sophisticated. Labor scarcity drove wages, property ownership, and entrepreneurial opportunity. The Black Death was catastrophic, yet transformative. It reshaped wealth, redistributed power, and changed human behavior permanently. This is why history is not only about dates, it's about hidden patterns in money, power, and survival. The fifth reveal: crises reveal the invisible forces behind wealth. The Black Death created opportunity for those willing to adapt. Ordinary people gained influence and resources previously denied to them. The elites lost grip, the economy reset. These are lessons Finance TED Official brings to the surface. Hidden patterns of scarcity, psychology, and human behavior during crises always repeat, and understanding them gives advantage in modern life, from finance to social systems. Mortality awareness shifted priorities. People invested in art, knowledge, and life experience. Societies that adapted economically thrived. Those that clung to tradition fell behind. Innovation, commerce, and wealth emerged from tragedy. Every crisis redistributes opportunity. The Black Death is the ultimate historical blueprint for this phenomenon. As we reflect, consider modern parallels. Pandemics, economic collapse, inflation, labor shortages. Systems appear permanent but can fail suddenly. Mortality, scarcity, and fear still drive behavior. Power flows to those who adapt. History repeats its patterns, and those who understand them survive and thrive. Ordinary people navigating crises gain wealth, opportunity, and influence if they can read the signals of scarcity and risk. The lesson is clear. The Black Death was more than death. It was an accidental architect of modern Europe. It shifted labor power, redistributed wealth, accelerated social change, and seeded innovation. Ordinary humans adapted, elites faltered, and the world transformed forever. History shows that understanding crises gives insight into human behavior, financial systems, and opportunity. So if you learned something new today, like this video, share it with friends. And subscribe to Finance TED Official for more cinematic storytelling uncovering the hidden forces of history that still control wealth, power, and human behavior. Comment below. If you were alive during the Black Death, would you cling to tradition or seize opportunity? History waits for those willing to learn.